In this week's Bizline, Prime Minister approves extension of time limit for tax and land rental payment. And later on, 5G, key enabler for Vietnam's digital transformation. Hello there, you're tuning into Bizline, our weekly economic journal on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng, and as usual, we now take a look at news making headlines in Vietnam's economic scene this week.
After studying the proposal of the Ministry of Finance, the Prime Minister has approved the provision on developing a decree to extend the time limit for tax and land rental payments in 2021 to support people and businesses. The total amount of money expected to be considered for the tax delay or deferral in this period can reach up to $4.9 billion. Specifically, with the value-added tax, the Ministry of Finance has proposed an extension of 5 months, and the budget revenue of those months is expected to decrease by about $2.9 billion. With corporate income tax, the management agency has proposed a 3-month extension with an extended tax amount of about $1.7 billion. The Prime Minister has also assigned the Ministry of Finance to coordinate with relevant ministries and agencies in order to quickly develop the draft decree and submit it to the government before the 20th of March.
Vietnam is likely to meet its target of reining in inflation at the rate of nearly 4% in 2021, the International Monetary Fund or IMF forecast. According to the IMF, in recent years, with an average growth of 7% and a focus on not leaving anyone behind, Vietnam has improved people's living standards and the realization of sustainable development goals. The IMF recommends maintaining an expansionary monetary policy while closely watching the vulnerability of the banking sector and the classification regulations of debt scheduling. Medium-term targets should include improving the framework of debt restructuring in the private sector and further improving banks' capital following the Basel II regulations.
Import and export activities in the first 2 months of the year have shown positive signs, of which export turnover reached $48.55 billion, increasing by 23%. Meanwhile, import turnover gained $47.26 billion, increasing by 26%. The trade balance of goods and commodities in the first 2 months of the year was estimated to reach $1.29 billion. Many items gained billions of US dollars from export activities, including timber, seafood, rice, coffee, and fruit. Particularly, the export value of aquatic products reached $405 million in February, pushing the figure in the first 2 months of 2021 to over $1 billion, up 2.2% over the same period last year. The Ministry of Industry and Trade has set a target of 4 to 5% export growth and expects to maintain a trade surplus this year.
According to the General Statistics Office, the growth of registered capital for newly established enterprises and the reduction of business suspension and dissolution are very positive signs in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic remaining complicated. In the first 2 months of the year, the whole country had 18,100 newly registered enterprises, with a total registered capital of nearly $14.5 billion, increasing by 4% and over 52% respectively compared to the same period last year. Along with that, the first 2 months of the year also recorded more than 11,000 enterprises resuming operations.
The Ministry of Transport has announced the construction of the first section of the 2 component projects of the North-South Expressway, which are Highway number 45 Nghi Sơn and Nghi Sơn Diễn Châu sections in June 2021. The ministry requires the Project Management Board to organize the bidding to ensure publicity, transparency, and select qualified contractors. According to the Ministry of Transport, the North-South Expressway component of the 43-kilometer National Road number 45 Nghi Sơn section is in Thanh Hóa province, while the 50-kilometer Nghi Sơn Diễn Châu section is between Thanh Hóa and Nghệ An provinces.
Those are some highlights in Vietnam's economic scene. Up next in our crosstalk, we will learn about future prospects for 5G network in Vietnam and how this technology can promote digitalization in Vietnam. The resolution of the 13th National Party Congress has identified the development of IT infrastructure and national digitization as one of the 3 strategic breakthroughs in the time to come. In particular, the development and application of 5G network is considered as the driving force for this process. So how does 5G network impact Vietnam's economy, and how can this technology promote digitalization of Vietnam? We will learn more in today's crosstalk. But first, let's watch a short clip to learn more about 5G.
2G brought us SMS and picture messaging. 3G was all about mobile internet. 4G made streaming and sharing part of everyday life. 5G stands for 5th generation and is the next leap forward in mobile network technology. It means fiber speeds without the need for fiber for everyone, everywhere. Much of the hype around 5G has to do with speed, but there are other perks too. With greater bandwidth, 5G can handle more connected devices than the existing 4G LTE network, improvements that will enable a wave of new kinds of tech products. 5G will also reduce latency, the time it takes for a cell phone or other connected device to make a request from a server and get a response to virtually zero. And it will make communication with cloud platforms faster and easier. 5G technology promises to transform the 2020s into a time of unprecedented connectivity and technological advancement. Higher performance and improved efficiency will empower new user experiences and connect new industries.
To elaborate more about this topic, we have invited to our studio today Mr. Dennis Brunetti, President of Ericsson Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia and Laos, and he and Ericsson has been working with Vietnam to develop telecommunication networks and digital services, including 5G. It's very nice to have you here today. Now, Dennis, from your experience, how has Vietnam been working with 5G so far?
So since December last year, we actually did the first commercial live 5G trials with the main 3 operators in Vietnam, in Mobifone, VNPT and Viettel. They were successfully deployed in partnership with Ericsson, November 30 with Viettel, December 19 with Vinaphone, and then again on the 28th of December with Mobifone. And we did technical trials in 2019, of course, but these were the first commercial live trials, which effectively resembles a soft launch deployment. And that's mainly in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, and it gives people in Vietnam the first taste of 5G. And we're very proud of that achievement, because what it's really done is it's given Vietnam the opportunity to showcase 5G a lot earlier than many other countries in ASEAN.
So what have we applied 5G to so far?
So initially it's more for enhanced mobile broadband experiences. So higher throughput, higher speeds, lower latency, basically making it easier for video streaming, for virtual reality, augmented reality, for cloud gaming and cloud compute. So that's the initial use case that will be trialled and used for this commercial live network.
So Vietnam has considered digitalization as the key enabler for growth. So how can this 5G network help Vietnam speed up this process, in your opinion?
Sure. Now, 5G is very much different to 4G and 3G before. I mean, we often talk about the different generations of mobile telephony, and a lot of people don't necessarily know what that difference is. So when we see first G or second G, that was where basically people were talking on the phone, sending text messages in the early 90s. With 3G, we connected the internet to mobile telephony, mobile communications. That's when we had the mobile internet in 2010, roughly, in Vietnam. And with 4G, it was basically like 3G, but on turbo boost speed, higher speeds, greater throughput, etc. With 5G, it's a revolution more than an evolution, actually. We're talking speeds that are 1,000 times faster. We're going into gigabytes, from megabytes to gigabyte speeds. The throughput is much larger, bigger capacity, much lower latency, and that becomes super important for cloud robotics, for example, on a factory floor with Industry 4.0, or a robot being used for remote surgery, where you need those real mission-critical low latencies. Also, more devices can be connected on a 5G network than 4G. So on a square metre basis, you can have more IoT, Internet of Things, sensors, which means that you'll have more users, more applications, more industry-centric applications in agriculture, manufacturing, healthcare, education, mining, energy sectors, they'll all benefit from having a higher density of users, whether it's people or machine, on the mobile network. And then of course it's also more efficient for power, so lower power consumption, 5G, and also spectral efficiency is far improved on 5G versus 4G. So you can actually get more value from the bandwidth that you have in terms of frequency. And the reason that is important, and the impact that has obviously on industry digitalisation, which the government has rightly demonstrated a very strong vision and strategic direction towards, is that it will help Vietnam become even more productive and efficient across all its industries, not only for domestic benefit in terms of GDP growth gains, but also for increased trade. And given the fact that you have now the EVFTA and the RCEP, the CPTPP, the UK Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, and many other free trade agreements, this will help Vietnamese companies become more competitive on the international stage and at the same time attracting high-tech foreign direct investment.
Now, you have covered a lot of advantages of 5G. So does that mean that we will only use 5G, or would existing technologies such as 3G and 4G still have their use?
That's a very good question. And we get asked that question quite often, actually, because people often think of the different generation of mobile telephony almost as start, stop, or some sort of linear progression, you know. But clearly, the way we always looked at it, when we had 2G, for example, what we explained back then was that you have a sea of 2G and islands of 3G. So you don't deploy 3G everywhere day one, you deploy it as an island application where you need it. And then once we had 3G, of course, mature across the whole nation, then it was a sea of 3G and islands of 4G. And now we're going through that same process. So in urban areas initially, like Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Da Nang, you know, the development of smart cities, for example, will require 5G in those particular cities. Economic zones will also then progressively become 5G enabled, and I think as part of that national strategy for Industry 4.0 the government aims to have. 4G will still need to coexist to provide the extra capacity required, and the beautiful thing, of course, about 4G and 5G technology supplied by my company, by Ericsson, is that you can actually do dynamic bandwidth allocation. You can use spectrum across 5G and 4G. So data can be basically efficiently carried across both those networks.
5G connected robot arms that can be controlled from afar with high precision. Smart automated factories that increase production efficiency. 5G network allows billions of devices to be connected in the era of the Internet of Things. Data stored on cloud computing infrastructure reduces costs and support digital transformation. All of these can be achieved through 5G technology. Nonetheless, 5G is close to zero latency, also enable new services that can transform industries with ultra-reliable remote control of critical infrastructure, vehicles, and medical procedures.
Đây chính là một cái cơ sở để cho các cái nhà mạng triển khai điều hành một cái thành phố thông minh, các cái nhà máy thông minh. Điều này sẽ giúp cho chúng ta có những cơ hội thu hút vốn đầu tư, cũng như là thu hút các cái doanh nghiệp công nghiệp nước ngoài vào đầu tư và sản xuất các cái dây chuyền, lắp đặt các cái dây chuyền sản xuất tại Việt Nam.
According to experts, Vietnam has favorable conditions for 5G implementation as the country has good telecommunications infrastructure, with 95% of the population using 4G network, broadband capacity ready to be upgraded, and the government's support. The implementation of 5G in Vietnam is also going well as businesses can now produce devices for building infrastructure instead of having to purchase them. As the result, Vietnam can fully harness 5G technology while also ensuring national security.
Chính cái việc mà chúng ta sản xuất được các cái thiết bị chạm phủ sóng cho 5G cũng là một trong những cái thế mạnh các nhà cung cấp dịch vụ là tối ưu hóa được cái đầu tư, rồi tối ưu hóa và hiệu quả các cái công nghệ đưa vào ứng dụng.
Cisco forecasts that by 2025, Vietnam will have 6.3 million 5G subscribers. This will not only bring carriers a revenue of $300 million annually, but also give Vietnam the opportunity to further promote the digital economy and digital society in the future.
Now, with such a revolutionary development of 5G, how do you think this will change the Vietnam's business environment in the time to come?
Yeah, I think it'll do phenomenal things. When you think back at the way countries like Vietnam, in the developing world, building out infrastructure, building seaports and airports, roads, bridges, tunnels, all this type of infrastructure that's needed to drive economic growth. But clearly with 5G, you will see this shift more towards science, technology, innovation-led, inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development. And that will be driven very much by the digital infrastructure rather than the physical infrastructure. So the physical infrastructure is super important, it always will be, but you need digital infrastructure as an overlay to the physical infrastructure. And that's what a smart city is. So when you have a digitally enabled city, or a rural area, mountainous area, doesn't matter actually, but any geography that has the digital infrastructure as an overlay, effectively you uplift the capabilities of that area and you basically have data become the new oil that's fueling the digital economy, fueling the internet, which drives as an engine of growth the inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development of a country like Vietnam. And clearly the government has recognised that, and I think we should really applaud and congratulate the party, the government, for really having a very clear vision and strategy around the adoption, the accelerated adoption of Industry 4.0 in manufacturing in particular, but across other industries, enabled by 5G as a secure, critical national infrastructure. And that's very important because 5G is also an innovation platform which can be used to stimulate startup entrepreneurship. So more jobs, more industries, new industries that we haven't even dreamed of today will be created out of startup entrepreneurship, which ultimately will be driven and created by the use of 5G technology.
Like you've mentioned earlier, with the development of 5G, it also helps to create new jobs in the market and also promote automation. So which do you think would have a bigger impact in the future?
That's a good question as well. And clearly, we don't know. There's no limit to what could be possible. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5-10 years, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 unicorns, $1 billion cap startups are generated from Vietnam. And I think Vietnam is well poised with its people, with its digital infrastructure, but most importantly with the vision and strategy of the government to actually take full advantage of the opportunities that will emerge in creating new jobs and new industries. A lot of those will come from digital health, mobile health, remote surgery. You'll get mining, so you'll have a lot of equipment drilling into the ground, completely remote controlled using a 5G network. It's faster, it's more efficient, no people needed to go down into the deep shafts, and of course that creates a healthier, safer environment as well. So as you get increased urbanisation, more people from farmlands are moving into the big cities. So in the farming communities, they're going to be able to use these tractors remotely controlled to do what many other people physically had to do themselves over time. So all these benefits, and there's many more, will create new jobs. Retail, forestry, fishery, agriculture and manufacturing today, those 5 industries account for 70-75% of jobs in Vietnam and about 56% of jobs in ASEAN. And most of those jobs will be displaced in the next 30 years due to increased automation enabled by 5G, which will help them become more efficient and productive so they can compete more so internationally. So it's a good thing in that regard, but when it comes to the jobs that are displaced, I can guarantee you that even though we don't know necessarily the jobs that will be created in the future today, there will be more jobs created in the future than are displaced today and into the future. And that we saw with the first industrial revolution, the second, the third, and now the fourth, we will see the same. After the first industrial revolution with the steam engine, of course, many jobs were lost, but many new jobs were created with the automotive vehicle and machines that were all of a sudden being manufactured around the world. Then with the second generation, we moved to mass production with electricity. That created a lot of new jobs in manufacturing in particular. What we clearly will see with the fourth industrial revolution is more jobs centred around the internet, and humans can do what we do best: create, innovate, work with science and technology and innovation. Hence the fantastic strategy by the Vietnamese party and government in really focusing their attention on lifting and uplifting and reskilling the existing workforce, as well as young people coming through schools and universities with digital literacy, data science, science, technology, engineering and mathematics. STEM is super important moving forward. So it's been done in a consolidated way, and I think the government should be very proud of their achievement.
In December 2020, Viettel Group officially piloted its commercial 5G service in Hanoi and became the earliest 5G provider in Vietnam after over a year of experimental broadcasting. Test results and actual use have shown that Viettel's 5G broadcasting equipment and international suppliers' equipment are fully compatible, thus meeting customers' requirements.
Khi mà có mạng 5G này rồi, tất cả mọi hệ thống tự động hóa thì việc đầu tiên là năng suất lao động của chúng ta sẽ tăng lên, và sau đó thì là chúng ta sẽ ứng dụng tất cả trên kỹ thuật số, như là ví dụ thanh toán số, thương mại số, rồi giải trí số, rồi logistics số, tất cả những cái đấy đều dựa trên nền tảng của mạng lưới 5G. Tôi tin tưởng là đến khoảng 2025, khi chúng ta có mạng 5G hoàn chỉnh thì chúng ta sẽ xây dựng được xã hội số, nền kinh tế số tại Việt Nam.
There will be 500 5G broadcasting stations in Hanoi. They are some of the most modern equipment manufactured by Viettel, which will ensure coverage of the 5G network. So far, all three major carriers in Vietnam, namely Viettel, Vinaphone, and Mobifone, have deployed 5G networks in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, bringing smooth experiences to users.
Định hướng của VNPT ngoài cung cấp 5G cho những khách hàng cá nhân, nhưng chúng tôi quan tâm hơn là những dịch vụ của 5G. Ví dụ như nãy tôi nói là vấn đề là kết nối Internet vạn vật và những cái ứng dụng trong tương lai cho các doanh nghiệp. Ví dụ như là tự động hóa các nhà máy, robot, đáp ứng nhu cầu chuyển đổi số của các khách hàng doanh nghiệp trong tương lai.
Being able to produce 5G equipment has a national strategic significance, and Vietnam is one of the few countries in the world that can produce 5G equipment.
Now, what could be the chance for 5G-related service providers in Vietnam?
Many new revenue streams, for sure. So today, most of the service providers like Mobifone and VNPT and Viettel, Vietnam Mobile, they basically derive most of their revenues from consumer applications, consumer data usage. And that's been on the rise dramatically over the last several years. Clearly, the next wave of revenue generation will come increasingly from enterprise. And there's many SMEs in Vietnam, small, medium enterprises, as well as large enterprises, local and international, and they're hungry to become more efficient and productive. And bringing cloud services, edge compute services, closer to their enterprise on the edge of the 4G and future 5G networks means that they can then access improved cloud services, digital transformation services in their enterprise. What we've done in Ericsson is a global, what we call consumer lab research study, and we found that about $700 billion worth of additional revenues on top of existing revenues. So about 35% increase in revenues will be the benefit for global operators once they adopt 5G and Industry 4.0 and apply the 5G benefit to enterprises and industries by 2030. There'll be an additional nearly $200 billion worth of additional revenues on top of today's revenues by also applying those 5G capabilities for consumers. So in total, we're talking quite a lot of additional revenue for operators globally, and of course in Vietnam, there's a real significant opportunity because you have so many companies, local companies, that are hungry, state-owned enterprises, that are really thirsting and hungry to digitally transform their enterprise to become more efficient and productive. And the operators, in partnership with Ericsson, we work together in partnership to strategically address those capabilities and those needs by enterprise, and that will generate more revenue for the state-owned operators and any other international operators working in Vietnam.
So in your opinion, what are the key success factors for accelerating the adoption of 5G in Vietnam and globally?
Yeah, I think we've touched on some of those already, of course. Having the 4G infrastructure already there and continuing to expand it is super important. With Ericsson, we have something called Ericsson Radio System. We've been deploying that since 2015 in Vietnam and other countries, which means that that radio system can be easily upgraded to 5G with a remote software upgrade, which is super efficient, very cost effective, and we can do that across the network quite easily. We can also use Ericsson spectrum sharing for existing spectrum to be utilised for both 4G and 5G. So in the initial introduction of 5G, we're able to do it quite easily and cost efficiently and quickly because we can deploy it with the existing infrastructure. So clearly that's an enabler for 5G, is to have that plan, have that roadmap, leverage your existing 4G installed base. And then on top of that, of course, the training and development we talked about, but also what's important, I believe, is spectrum. I mean, we all know that spectrum, the frequencies that are used for any mobile broadband standard, is like the air you breathe. If data is the new oil that fuels the digital economy that drives socioeconomic development, then spectrum is the new oxygen, or the old oxygen actually. It's the oxygen in the ICT industry. And you need it in order for the industry to breathe and for it to grow and expand. So the utilisation of spectrum, the release of spectrum, especially 2600 megahertz spectrum, 2300 megahertz spectrum, 3.5 gig, 28 gig in the future, the high band. Those type of spectrum need to be released and will be released over time in Vietnam, and we look forward to that.
So once again, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Starting with 2G in 1992, Vietnam has quickly developed its IT infrastructure and became one of the earliest countries to successfully pilot 5G in the world. Results show that along with the 10 times faster speed, 5G's latency is only 1/5 of 4G's. With all of its advantages and the determination of the government and businesses, the 5G technology will help Vietnam speed up its digitalization process and soon reach economic development targets. And this also wraps up this edition of Bizline. To rewatch our program, please log on to our website at vtv4.vtv.vn or simply download our app VTVgo from App Store and Google Play for a lot more. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.